Hi there, it's Chin from Classy Novel. Today, I want to quickly address a common misconception that a lot of people have when they think about ethical selling or selling in a non-manipulative way. Most people think that that kind of selling means that you have a long sales cycle, and that is simply not true. As a matter of fact, I personally believe that if you have a sales cycle that is any more than 3 months, your sales cycle is probably too long. And this is even true for the case if you're selling B2B to very large bureaucratic institutions. So I want to share 4 main tips today that will help you greatly reduce your sales cycle. Tip number 1 is understanding the decision threshold. When people are evaluating the option of changing to a new solution, unconsciously or whether it's consciously, they are looking at number 1, the cost of staying the same versus the cost of changing. So costs of staying the same are things like the time it takes to currently solve the problem in an ineffective way. Maybe it's a lost opportunity. Maybe it's the difficulty itself with dealing with the problem with very traditional methods. Or maybe it's risk that they are exposing themselves to by being non-compliant with not implementing your service or solution. On the flip side, the cost of changing, the most common one is, of course, pricing. Some other ones include, training and adoption, or maybe the approval process, or maybe even the implementation itself when it comes to integrating with systems, software, existing workflow automations, right? So what a lot of organizations will do is they will focus on the pain, on the cost of staying the same. They will highlight why you're wasting time, how your products or services help alleviate the pain. But there's actually a lot of people who overlook the low-hanging fruit of focusing on the cost of changing. So what can you do to make it as easy as possible for someone to switch to your product or service? How can you maybe de-risk the opportunity, reduce the scope of the project? So this is why pilots, and we'll talk about free trials or freemium in a second, but this is why those kind of programs are very effective. When you have a pilot program, instead of doing a company-wide rollout, you offer the organization the option of implementing with, let's say, a small test group, maybe a department, maybe a region, instead of doing the larger rollout. And then from there, once they get a sample of the experience, then they can decide. And it's a lot easier to sell to someone once they've already tried your product or service, once they're already a micro user. Make sense? On the flip side, let's shift gears and talk a bit about the freemium and also the time trial model. So that I've alluded to, that's actually tip number 2 is instead of using time-based trials, where let's say, for example, if you have a 30-day free trial, congratulations, your sales cycle is now effectively a minimum of 30 days. So instead of doing that, what I actually strongly recommend is exploring what we call usage-based pricing. So usage-based pricing, the common example is if you look at MailChimp, if you have under 2,500 subscribers, it's free. Once you go over 2,500 subscribers, the pricing is tiered based on the volume of subscribers that you have. So the keyword here is you need to find the right metric to tier that volume around. Well, I won't go into that in this video, but if you do that, it's a lot more effective than even freemium, because if you look at freemium, where you have a free version where it's a subset of features, and then you have the pro version where they upgrade. The challenge with freemium is that some of those pro features are not necessarily features that your regular users are already using. So you run the risk of bloating your solution with a lot of features to try to cater to many different kinds of power users, right? So having that diversity of different power users is number 1 a bad thing, because then it dilutes your marketing message. You're trying to target different people. But also number 2, on the development side, whether it's product development or service development, you're running the risk of having to try too many different features that may or may not appeal to someone. Make sense? So that's tip number 2. Number 3 is not properly qualifying and scoring your leads. The idea here is, of course, very simply put, if you're reaching out to someone in the wrong phase of their decision-making process, then you're wasting your time with them, because if they're not ready to convert, then maybe they need more time to be educated, nurtured, and really convinced on your solution before they're ready to buy. If you put them into the sales funnel too early, it's a waste of time, because sales is very time-intensive, very resource-intensive, and it's very energy intensive as well. So you want to make sure that you're giving your sales reps good qualified leads that are ready to purchase. Don't confuse this with the importance of relationship building. Of course, with any customer, you want to build a good relationship with them, but some amount of relationship building can be done by marketing, right? It can be done through some automation. It can be done through actually helping people really understand the scope of the problem, what they're facing, the alternatives, what the competitive landscape looks like, before you actually put them into the sales funnel and have your sales reps move them through the decision-making process and make them more ready to buy. Make sense? So making sure that you properly score them and use lead scoring so that you can identify warm behaviors like visiting your pricing page, your product page, or maybe looking at reviews, those kind of things. The third tip I want to talk about is, the fourth tip we're moving into is actually reducing formalities in the sales process. So the big problem that a lot of companies run into is the more formal your sales process, if you have contracts, if you have legal documents that need to involve the legal team, obviously that is going to lengthen the process. So how can you reduce formalities? Maybe it's by, like I mentioned before, reducing the scope of the project, or maybe it's by getting them to try first before they actually commit to something, or maybe it's even through things like terms and conditions, right? Have those embedded instead of upfront. So I'm not saying that you should hide things from your customer, but get your customer to try first, get them to have some sense of an experience. On the flip side, you are limiting your risk as well. And then from there, you can work out the legalities after. So not saying that you don't have legalities or you're trying to hide anything under the table, but give them a smaller scope version of your product or service such that you can use terms and services instead of formal contracts. And then from there, once they've tried, if it's a really good fit, if they need to do a wider rollout, then yes, you can involve those contracts. Make sense? So I'm going to quickly repeat those four again. Number one is looking at how you can reduce the cost of changing. Number two, exploring usage-based pricing instead of free trials or freemium. Number three, properly setting up lead scoring so that you have the right qualifications for your customers. And then number four, reducing formalities. So I hope this will be helpful for you. These, as you notice, are all very product and service specific adjustments that you can make, and none of them relate to how you sell, the methodology or frameworks that you use. So obviously, if you want to find a good, comfortable way to sell to your customers that is non-manipulative, that has more of that emphasis around value add and relationship building, I'd love to chat with you.